Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. In today's session, we are going to discuss about another difficulty that generally students face in the subject biology, and that is the labeling of various diagrams related to life processes. In today's session, we are discussing about the digestive system in human beings. Now this digestive system, of course, the labeling part is not very difficult, and generally students, they learn the terms, they learn the parts of the digestive system quite easily. But the tips that we are going to give you in this session is that how to relate those terms with their function, with their location in this particular system, so that you can quite easily learn the basic things without following the theory again and again. Of course, we never say that theory is not important. You have to go through it, but once you are done with that, then the diagrams can help you a lot in understanding the system, their parts, the function, as well as that how they are maintaining the particular process, how they are helping in the survival of the living organism. So let us find out this digestive system, its parts, and the further basic things. So in your exams, generally the questions comes like label a particular part in the alimentary canal or in the digestive system, isn't it? So questions like, it is not necessary that it is always asked to draw the entire diagram and label each and every part. They may label some of the parts, and then they may ask you that which part it is. You have to label it, right? The diagram is shown here in a similar manner. Some of the parts of this alimentary canal or the digestive system is shown here, right? And we have to label it. So let us label the different parts, the one which are marked in this diagram, and of course those which are not actually marked. So let us find out those specific parts of the system, and then how it is important, how it is what type of role it is playing in the digestion. So before we label this picture, I just want to remind you of a basic thing related to digestive system. If you remember, we can say that this digestive system is comprised of two basic parts, right? And what those main parts are, they are the alimentary canal, and besides that, the another one is the glands, or we can call them as the digestive glands. Right. So these digestive glands, they are either located within this alimentary canal, or they are generally associated with the alimentary canal. Right. So this alimentary canal is a long tubular structure. As you can see in the diagram, as soon as you look at the picture, you must remind this particular thing, that it is a system which is comprised of two parts, the glands and the canal. Right? This alimentary canal, it runs from your mouth, that is your outer opening, not very difficult to understand, isn't it? From this outer opening to the posterior pore that we call as the anus. So this entire tube part is of course having a varied thickness, the varied dimensions, and of course the composition, the secretions, the functions, everything varies from one part to the another. And the glands, when we are discussing, some are associated with the wall or the alimentary canal, right? That means if they are associated, then they are located outside the canal. The others, they may be embedded or they may be present within the wall of this particular canal. So this is the basic thing that must strike your mind when you are discussing about the digestive system. Now further, when the diagram is present here, we are going to label this diagram. So the very first part here is it is shown here in the diagram is the buccal cavity. See, you can see this nose part is here, right? And further, these are the lips. So these lips, they are enclosing the structure, or we are calling this opening as the mouth, and as the mouth is open, the behind space is known as the buccal cavity. So here the very first part to be labeled is the buccal cavity. You can say it is the interior most part of the alimentary canal, which is observed as soon as we open our mouth, right? Inside the buccal cavity, you know what things are there. Now this is the external part that you can see, isn't it? So they are having the teeth, they are having the tongue, and of course they are surrounded by the internal wall of the cheek muscles, isn't it? Besides that, the important thing which is associated with the buccal cavity is the gland. We said these digestive glands, they are of two types. Some are present within the wall, right? The others are associated. So this buccal cavity is the region in where these glands are present. You know which glands are present inside the buccal cavity? They are the salivary glands. These salivary glands, they are located below the your tongue, right? So they are three pairs. Fine, you can see these here in this picture also. These are the three pairs which are shown here. Now of course they are below the tongue, and of course they are not observed by the naked eyes, right? But they are located, and the proof is the secretion of saliva in your mouth, watering of your mouth. So this suggests that there is something which is secreting out this particular saliva, and that thing is nothing but the salivary glands. So in the buccal cavity, what is present besides in this under the tongue here? That is your salivary glands. So in case when it is asked to label that specific part, then what you need to write here is that is the salivary glands, right? Although we have not marked here in the picture, but definitely in some other question, sometime other than this time, it may be asked to label this also, isn't it? So this part is the salivary glands. Okay. Now, buccal cavity leads to a further backside, the cavity which we call as the pharyngeal cavity, or we can call that next part of the alimentary canal as the pharynx, which lies just behind the buccal cavity, and we can say it runs besides towards the throat region. So this particular region in which the buccal cavity is further opening is known as the pharynx. Now with this picture, don't get confused that these salivary glands are present in the pharyngeal cavity. No, it is just a location which is shown here, and of course it is towards the backside of the of your tongue. Right. Then further, when the buccal cavity leads to the next cavity, then that part is known as the pharynx, and the cavity present inside is known as the pharyngeal cavity. Further, this pharynx further leads to a narrow tubular structure which is around 9 centimeter long. That part is known as the esophagus, and this esophagus is located where? In the chest cavity, right? Or the thoracic cavity. Now this long tubular structure, it is not having any of the glands present inside, and neither it is associated. That means it is not having the glandular part in its internal or outer side, right? If that gland is not present, then what is present there, right? What is the major function? Digestive system. It is associated, it is linked with the digestion. But if these glands are not present here, then what is the function of esophagus? So this esophagus is basically a muscular part which are contractile in nature, definitely. So this contraction and relaxation of the muscles present in the wall of this esophagus, it helps in the forward movement of the food particles. Now this is providing the passage for the transport of food material, partially chewed food material from your buccal cavity to the further part of the alimentary canal. Now this muscular movement, the relaxation, the rhythmic relaxation and contraction, which is pushing the bolus. What is bolus? It is the mashed form of food which was produced in your mouth, right? We ingested the food material. It was chewed over there. It was mixed with saliva, and then it was transferred. So such type of mashed form of food is known as the bolus. Fine. Now this bolus is for the moving down through the esophagus. How? By the contraction and relaxation of esophagus muscles, right? Now such type of movement is known as the peristalsis, right? Now this peristalsis further pushes the bolus into the stomach. The next part of the alimentary canal is the stomach. Let us label it here in this diagram. So this part is your stomach. That means esophagus, it is further forming a bag-like structure which is situated towards the left side of our abdominal cavity, the upper part of the abdominal cavity. Fine. Now the opening through which it is further opening into the stomach is actually controlled by the specific sphincter muscles. Right? So that contraction and the relaxation of these sphincter muscles will actually push the bolus forward into the stomach. Now this stomach, it is a belly-like structure, or we can say it's a bag-like structure, and the important important thing that we must know about it now is that the internal epithelial lining is glandular. They are having the specific glands over there. You know which glands? They are the gastric glands, right? So these gastric glands are further present inside the stomach. They are forming the lining of the stomach. Now these gastric glands, they are secreting the juice which is known as the gastric juice. Now if it is secreting this gastric juice, where it is going to go? Where it will go further? Of course in the cavity of the stomach, or the lumen of the stomach. What is the function? Of course the function depends upon the composition of the gastric juice. Basically they are having the enzymes, they are having some HCl and the mucus. Right. So HCl is basically providing the favorable conditions for the enzymes secreted in the gastric juice. The enzyme which is secreted here is the inactive form of pepsin. Right. So this pepsin, an inactive form is actually known as pepsinogen, which is activated in the presence of the HCl. Right. That is hydrochloric acid. In the acidic conditions, this pepsin is able to act upon the proteins and digest it into the simpler forms. Right. Besides that, HCl is produced here. Now this HCl could harm your stomach wall also, isn't it? So that protection to internal wall of the stomach is provided by the mucus. That mucus will form a layer over this internal lining of the stomach and will not allow the HCl to act over it or to damage your stomach cells. Fine. Now, after such type of partial digestion, the food is forwarded into the next part of the alimentary canal, which is known as the small intestine. This small intestine is having various regions here now. And what are they? Let us see here. See, this is the first part of the small intestine, and that is known as the duodenum. Fine. It is duodenum. The next part, see, this duodenum is a very inverted tube-like or somewhat S-shaped structure here, which is further highly coiled. Right. Then it is this next part of the small intestine is known as the jejunum, and the next coiled part is known as the ileum. So together, these three parts, they are forming the small intestine. Now it of course depends that what the examiner has asked in the exams, right? Whether they are labeling simply it as together, or they are specifically asking you about the particular part of the intestine. Of course that depends on the examiner and where it is marked in the intestine or in the diagram, right? So but we are highlighting all three parts of the small intestine. So now after doing this much labeling, it is almost very clear that how to label a particular diagram, right? Now of course depending on the question, you can do it yourself, and in this diagram the further parts we are just leaving it pending. Fine. No, just for the sake that you guys are going to follow it, and you will know that how to practice for such type of questions, right? And again one suggestion is there: whenever you are labeling the diagram, sidewise just have a recall of the related function, the structure and the location in your body, so that you can become the master for not only this labeling part, but of course for the other parts like the structures, function, mechanism of the various processes taking place in that part, and so on. So I hope you have understood the pattern. So just follow the way and just check your own caliber that whether you can follow the things or not. So we'll come back in the next session with some new interesting part. Till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.